However, when it comes to writing, I cannot write investigative story. I cannot write mysteries. I would give everything away in 3 paragraphs. So I write love stories instead. And my writing started when I was 15.
Hey friend, welcome back to the 1010 Book Club channel. If you're new here, my name is Billy Chan. I'm a bookworm that is based in Penang. On this channel, it is the best place to explore knowledge and books that help us think and gain life wisdom. Subscribe to us now and join us in our learning journey. In this sharing, we have Siti Hazneza, a passionate educator that has authored 6 teenage to young adult novels. Her novels, such as Cemburu Seorang Perempuan, was adapted in Astro drama Vaganza slot in 2019. Siti Hazneza was also a judge for one of Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka's writing competition in 2020. She is the founder and instructor at BINTANG Academy, where she conducts writing workshops for both creative and scientific writings. Siti will be sharing her personal journey of publishing a book in Malaysia. Even if you have no idea on the topic to write about, she might be able to give you a bit of inspiration in this sharing. Anyone that has a will to write a book can write and publish the book. Let's enjoy her sharing and learn from her experience now. Today we are going to do something very different from what we are doing. So we normally wanted to say that we want to share about a book and we wanted to learn something, right? And today we are very grateful that we are going to learn about the journey of an local successful fiction writer. And I'm very thankful for Siti Hazneza. She actually published a handful of books, 6 teenage to young adult novels. They are like Cemburu Seorang Perempuan, Mimpi Kita Serupa, Angin Dingin dari Utara, Setulus Setia Seindah Nama, beautiful name, Sonata Kasihku, and Kinsukuria Dua Hati. So those are all locally published, and this is the era when self-publishing like Amazon wasn't really a fan yet. And one good thing, if you look at the poster that we have created, it is actually the novel of Cemburu Seorang Perempuan, which is adopted to become an Astro drama Vaganza in 2019. I believe some of the members here they said, hey, I watched the drama before, and when we do the poster, right, I said, hey, we want to do a poster, we're gonna put in the actress there. Then we're curious that later you guys expect the actress to come for the sharing, but yeah, I think it's a very grateful that those are the adopted dramas and a fiction book from Siti. Yeah. So Siti also ran Facebook Live during her free time. She is also the founder and instructor at BINTANG Academy. She conducts writing workshops for creative like in Bahasa and English. She also helped communications coaching classes for the children. And in her pipeline, she still have 3 novels. I'm not sure what to say the name, but you will know when it's finished. And Hazneza, without further ado, I want to pass it to you so that people can hear it from you and probably add in something that I have not yet said about you. Yeah, you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Billy, for the kind introduction. First and foremost, let me express my gratitude to Wan Nabila. I think she's not here this morning, but she was the one who introduced me to Mr. Billy Chan, and then that bring us today to 10 on 10 book club meeting. And it is an honor to be with all of you today. So I'm going to share my slide with you. I prepared a simple slide. So I want to ask how many of you have read Quiet by Susan Kane? This is a semi-creative non-fiction book. How many of you have read this book? If you have read this book, then I am, by definition, an introvert. Um, we all know that nobody can be a pure introvert or extrovert because those two extremes would be treated in an asylum, won't they? All of us are here, which means we are between introvert and extrovert, except that we all have different dominance. Like probably one trait is more dominant than the other. Like Susan Kane mentioned in her book, an introvert is not necessarily dull or quiet for that matter. Given the right company and under the right circumstances, they could be quite a storm. I am happy to tell you that I too have had colorful experiences in my life, albeit being an introvert. And today I will share one part of my experiences with you, and that is the part of writing, reading, writing, and creating stories to be published. You cannot speak about writing without talking about reading. My father is an avid reader. He always has something on him to read. I remember being bored out of my mind when we were waiting at a hospital. I was slouching on the chair. I was sliding on the chair, much like this boy here. I was begging for the boredom to be gone. I was bugging him. And he looked at me and said, "Next time, bring something to read." From then on, I read whatever I can get my hands on. That included a Chinese horse calendar. So for us Malaysian, this is a very familiar sight in our house, and you would be surprised at how much information you can extract from this calendar. Um, Books has always been the real gift from my father. Let me explain why I said real gift. I complained to him that you always got me books. I said to him, you always got me books. So one birthday, I think I was 10, he changed. He gave me a small soft kitten toy. And I did not have the least of excitement when I received that. But we did take a photograph because it's a birthday. We did a photograph, and then the next day he brought me a book, and I was elated. So that's why I said book is my real gift. My father had given me many books. I grew up reading the Malay translation, not English, the Malay translation of Hitchcock, Famous Five, Nancy Drew, Secret Seven, and Hardy Boys. So you see the pattern. I grew up reading mysteries, and I watch avidly investigative series, Law and Order, NCIS, CSI, all something that have to do with lawyers and courtrooms, like Ellie McBeal, Beyond Reasonable Doubts. They don't make the series like that anymore, do they? And however, when it comes to writing, I cannot write investigative story. I cannot write mysteries. I would give everything away in 3 paragraphs. So I write love stories instead. And my writing started when I was 15. It started, these are all my teachers, by the way. Some of them are Malaysia literature laureate, sastrawan negara. Datuk Cikgu Syahnun Ahmad is here, Pak Samad or A. Samad Said is here, Arinawati is here. And then there are prominent people in literature arena in Malaysia. Dr. Fatimah Busu, Puan Zahara Nawawi, Fazal Terani, Khalid Saleh, SM Zakir, Datuk Anwar Ridwan, Rahimuddin Zahari, Ustaz Azizi, Latif Muhyiddin, and this is my creative writing instructor in USM, Mr. Robert Raymer, and this is my PhD supervisor who taught me a lot in writing scientifically and actually helped me write better in English, Dr. Phil Evans. And it all started with this person, Datuk Professor Dr. Suhaimi Abdul Aziz. He organized a writing workshop in the School of Humanities in 1997. I was 15 at that time, and this workshop covers many genres. It covers novel writing, short story writing, poem writing, and also news writing. So it covers many ground. After that workshop, I wrote one or two originals, but more often I rewrote scenes that I like from movies that I watch, and weave them together to make a new story. Basically, have a story with all the good bits in it. Until one day, a friend in college said, "Hey, that part is from that story." I was busted, so to speak, and I learned that I need to come up with my own original story. So I write Cemburu Seorang Perempuan when I was in college. I was 18 years old. I was surrounded by young women. These young women, they are competitive. Looking at them being competitive academically is nothing. When you look at them being competitive over a guy, wow, that is mind blowing. So a little exaggeration, a little imagination, and a bit of a personal experience, a story was born. And this story is about a married couple. The wife suffered from an ectopic pregnancy because I'm a science student, so I need to inject some biology in there. Ectopic pregnancy, and her fallopian tubes had to be severed, and she can no longer conceive. Conceive. That should be without the D. She asked her husband to marry his best friend, so the best friend could be the surrogate mother. And that is the basis of the story, and her jealousy escalated to a psychosis, and that took toll on their relationship. I did not publish this book until 3 years later when I was 21 years old. I was doing my first degree in University Science Malaysia. I was associated with Kelab Pembimbing Rakan Sebaya, Peer Reciprocal Club, USM, and we were short on funding. I thought, okay, I will sell this story, see if it can bring me some money so I can help my society. So I sent it off to Creative Enterprise, and they accepted the story. They wanted to publish it. They called me up and said, okay, we like your story. We are going to publish it, and we will give you 2,000 ringgit for someone who had never seen anything beyond three figures. 2K felt like I could buy the world. That's how naive I was. So they sent me the contract. I signed it. I did not understand half the sentences that were in the contract. You know how lawyers write, and that was my mistake, my rookie mistake. I was too eager to get my work published, and I was too excited to get the money to help my society. So when this book was published, there was an Islamic magazine called that was rising in popularity. Just at the time this book was published, I had an issue that covered about how surrogation is haram, that is prohibited and sinful in Islam. I was shattered. Oh God, what have I done? So I called my publisher and said, I want to revoke this book. Please stop printing them. Please stop selling them. I just went crazy. I was young. But the editor-in-chief that I spoke to, she was very casual, very relaxed, very cool and collected. She said, yes, we can stop printing, but you need to buy them off us. Of course, they want to make money. They are a publishing company, and it's a logical thing to do. At that time, even if they had sold this book at 1 ringgit each, I do not have the means to buy them off. I don't have that much money. So I was worried sick. She said to me, look, Siti, if people call you, just say this is pure coincidence. If there's any resemblance with the living or the dead, it's a pure coincidence. This is just a creative work, pure imagination. We all have heard this disclaimer often, right? But one of my readers actually went to Jabatan Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan. So this is the Islamic department in Kuala Lumpur. She went to see the ustaz, asking the ustaz if she can do what was done in Cemburu Seorang Perempuan. she wanted, you know, to ask her husband to marry someone and be the surrogate mother, yada yada yada. And the ustaz was stunned, and the ustaz couldn't emphasize more to her that this is prohibited and that she should not have done it. So she went out of the way to my publisher to get my phone number, to call me up and explain to me why it is not permissible in Islam. Although it has this controversy that is not made public, Cemburu Seorang Perempuan has enjoyed many successes. So one of it is it was the best-selling first novel in 2003, and then in 2006, Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka. And if you are not from Malaysia, Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka is the authority when it comes to language and literature in Malaysia, and they conducted the first workshop that studies popular novels. And Cemburu Seorang Perempuan was one of it, out of 10. My novel happened to be reviewed by Puan Zalila Sharif. I was, you know, having knots in my stomach because I was told that Puan Zalila was very strict. She did call me up and ask me why did I write, what was my background, and I thought, okay, you know, I'm dead, basically. But subhanallah, during her presentation, it was all positive. It was all positive, and I was surprised in a good way, and I still can't believe it. So that's good. And fast forward 16 years later, it is adapted by Ira Rahman to be a teledrama. I was informed about this when I was in Vancouver, and I politely declined, thinking that I don't want to, you know, I don't want the public to get confused, like, oh, can we actually do the surrogation, this and that. But Ira Rahman actually make a amendment to that, and she did it tastefully, I believe. And I thought because I declined, then it's not going to happen. So I was probably the last person that learned that my novel has been adapted to teledrama, because so many friends who had been radio silent for years suddenly contacted me. Hey, congrats, I saw that your novel is going to be on screen now. Good job, well done. And I tell them right away that yes, but I'm not getting paid. And then silent. And why was I not getting paid? This was in the contract. This was in the contract. I was only going to be paid that lump sum 2,000 ringgit in 2003, and whatever and however this novel turned out in the future, or being adapted or being transferred into different media, those would be the rights of the publisher. Even the copyright of the novel belongs to the publisher, because it is their standard practice that for a new author, the first book, the copyright of that first book belongs to the publisher. And this is particularly for creative enterprise Sendirian Berhad, not necessarily with other publishing house. So that's why it's important to check, to understand the contract before you sign. So the mistake is on me, right? So I am working on the sequel to correct my wrong in Cemburu Seorang Perempuan. It's a work in progress, and in between, I had written 5 other novels, and I am glad to tell you that you don't have to worry when you start writing. You don't have to worry that you don't have stories. We all have stories. We are, okay, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old even. We have tons of stories that we can derive from, that we can extract from. So my novels, my stories. So Cemburu Seorang Perempuan is what I saw, a little bit, what I saw in college. And then, you know, imagination, exaggeration, and it becomes Cemburu Seorang Perempuan. Mimpi Kita Serupa is what I tells a little bit about my elementary school, and then my high school, and then it's imagination. And Angin Dingin Dari Utara is probably my best to many of my readers, because it covers my travels. When I was 17, I won a personal prize from a quiz that took me to Toronto and Quebec for 10 days. and the group win took us to Thailand for 8 days. So this book, Angin Dingin Dari Utara, preserve those memories. So the places are real, the people that I met are real. So those my travels in Canada and Thailand is covered in this book. And then Setulus Setia Seindah Nama is my take. I am in love with Arabic language. So I want to show to my reader how beautiful Arabic is. And it is from learning Arabic that I become better at both Bahasa Melayu and English. So when we were editing this, the editor said, this is so distractive, having Arabic in between the dialogues, and then the Arabic is written in transliteration, meaning to say it's written in ABC, and people have to, it's not easy. And I don't know where I got the courage from, but I told the editors, if you are going to omit the Arabic dialogues, you might as well not publish this book. I don't care. I mean, I don't know why I said that. So they took, I think, about a week deliberating among themselves, and finally said, okay, we're going to keep the Arabic part in it. And Sonata Kaseku, I joined Club Kung Fu USM. Yes, I did. And I was the pearl bearer in the Dragon Dance. And I also play Chinese drum. So I put that in Sonata Kasihku. And this is the latest one, Kinsu Kuroi. I did not expect to write this. I was supposed to finish up my thesis. However, I was depressed and I need to find an outlet. I found an old handwriting, about 4 or 5, I think about 8 pages or 10 pages of a story. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to type this in case the hard copy is lost. I would have a soft copy or PDF of it. And be careful what you wish for. I did lost the copy. And I said, oh, good God, now I really lost it. I don't know why I misplaced it. And I said, before I forgot anything, I might as well type it out. So as I was typing it, and if you are writing already, you know how a story sometimes demand to be told. Sometimes stories want you to tell about it, and you cannot sleep, you cannot, it's bugging you. It's in your mind all the time. So I did, and I realized that as I was writing this, what started as like 10 pages handwriting becomes elaborated, and suddenly the characters are dealing with depression, and they are coming out of the darkness of depression, and so did I. So that book is, in a way, a healing process for me as well. So what do I learn from this journey? I can tell you that there's more happiness than heartbreaks, especially when you know you make an impact, you know that you have changed your readers in one way or the other to the better. So it is more happiness than heartbreak. But I think what I learned is that I need to be responsible of my work. I need to take responsibility, and I need to be accountable for it. And being young when I started out, a senior editor or a good relationship pairing with an editor would have helped. And we don't have this, not to my knowledge, we don't have this in Malaysia. And Dato Anwar Ridwan, one of the best editors that you can have in Malaysia, mentioned that it is very important to have a good editor-author relationship. In the West, an author is tagged to an editor so much so that if the editor moved to a different publishing house, the author would also move to the different publishing house. Because editor can tell you, okay, this story would sell, or you lack here or there. That they would be your honest viewer. They're not going to sugarcoat anything, because they are like a double agent, I suppose, because they want to help you, and at the same time they want to help the company. They want to help you by making sure you can tell your story, but they also want to help the company making sure that your story can sell. And we don't have agent here in Malaysia, not that I know of. And agent is helpful, sometimes they can go and sell you to different publishing house, and maybe talk on your behalf. to get your novel adapted or whatnot. And lawyer up, maybe I now advise my participants in my workshop, if you have the means, lawyer up, or at least get a consultation to see if the contract is biased or if it is fair. At least know what you are signing up for, what you are letting go. Because what happened to the copyright amongst us, the authors of that particular company, um, it is very difficult, and almost none of them get the right for their first novel. None. So it's all up to it all belongs to the company. And I think as a company, they should be more transparent. We could use more transparency in explaining. Do you understand what this is? And I appreciate one of the companies, I think it was Karang Craft, that I contacted to publish Kinsu Kuroi. And I was so scared that I was not receiving royalties from my other book. So I said, you know what, I am willing to give you this as a lump sum. Like, just pay me, 10,000, and then I'll be happy and be gone. But she did say, why would you want to do that? If it is a good story and there's a spin-off out of it, you will be, shortchanged. So she was being honest in that sense. I appreciate that. So transparency really helped, and it can go a long way. But don't worry, there's hope yet for Malaysia Books Publication Arena. There are many authors that turn publishers because they have suffered from not being paid, or they have had enough of this, politics. So they turn into publisher, and many of them, I heard, treated their authors really well. And since the MCO, many people and many groups are doing self-publication. They either do it as an ebook, they either do it as a blog, that you get special link where you can go and read. And some people publish personally, alone, publish a physical book personally, and some publish as a group, whereby, for example, if you have one story in that book, then you pay 200, and then let's say there's 10 of us, then that's already 2,000, and that's enough to start, printing some a few books, maybe 100, 200 copies, and they take pre-orders, so they have the strategy to market it and make sure that they get some revenue back. So there's hope for that. And that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. I would be happy to answer your questions, should you have any.
Yeah. Hey, Kak Nizam, I think the one thing that I like about you is that you are very positive in the way of you. They say that everyone have a story to be told, and
Yeah.
what you shared with us just now is more about how was your journey after the book was written. So my question to you is, when you started to write, say Cemburu Seorang Perempuan, that book, right? To create that book, like for example, I might have a story to tell, but I don't know how to put it back. Would you share the thought process that go to your mind in doing that?
Okay. So I think many people ask this question to authors and artists, I guess. Every author has different creative process. For example, for me, the story usually come and it is already done in my head. So I just need to write it down, to take it out of my head and put it on paper. But there is also a technical, methodical way to do that. And this is covered in the workshop. I usually tell my participant, if you are new or you have no experience at all, then you can start by using a fishbone model. So we will use this in the workshop, and you can see that just like you write a report, you have introduction, and then what is it about, the objective, and then the content, the report, and then you conclude. Likewise, you would write a story, except that you use a different language, and you can play more compared to when you are doing a report.
Okay.
How many of you are working on stories? How many of you are actually working? Except I know Billy is working on something.
Hello, I have a question to ask.
Yes.
Okay,
Who
so
am I speaking to?
I'm Wang Jing.
Wan Ching. Okay.
Wang Jing.
Wan Ching. Okay. Yes.
Everyone definitely has their own story to tell, but then not everyone dare to uh, unveil their story, and they are not going to embark as a author because not everyone want to make it as a profession. So, do you face this kind of people? Will how to persuade them to write up their story, and then yet they are not going to be a long-term writer. They just want to share their story, but they don't dare to share out.
Hmm. That happened too. Because being an author, you are actually exposing yourself. You're being vulnerable. You're exposing yourself. Because Imam Al-Ghazali, one of the great Muslim scholar, he said, writing is the voice between your heart and and your mouth, right? Because when you write, it's the voice that you cannot lie about. So you can see someone who's very demure, but when they write, they are very strong, they're very loud. And some people have stories in their lives that we have heard, and we say, wow, people should know about your story. People should learn, they can learn a lot from your story. So there's two things. One, you can write this particular experience like a one-off, just to share it with the world, because I think, for example, I think this story is really important about I don't know, someone who's dealing with an autistic child. Just an example. So how what she did and da 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 da. Okay, just write this story one off. Convince her or him to write this story one off so that people can learn from it, because you would be surprised at how many people are actually benefiting from your sharing, because they were in the dark, they were looking for something to hold on to, and then they find your book and said, I'm so glad I find your book. So that's one motivation for them. Secondly, if they don't want to be the author at all, so you can always find someone else to write on your behalf. Either you give the story to an already established author and ask that person, I have this thing I want to share. You can have it. You can write it. Uh, if you want to deal about, share the profit or whatever, that's another thing. But you can give it to someone else, or you can help write other people's story that you think is interesting. Do I answer your question?
Yeah, I think you answer very well. Means that if let's say I want to remain anonymous, then I can go for the second option, like give my story to someone
Yes.
right on my behalf.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. And this is just yes. Go ahead.
As I was asking that, no, so I have always have this thing in my mind that a lot of people says about writers and writer blogs. I don't think it's so true. I think it's that like for myself, I think I'm lazy to do it. But I think for your part, what beside the writer blogs, what are those difficult parts in writing, and what's the barrier that I would need to be aware of in order to start writing or to start write a very
I know this might sound like a broken record, but when you want to write, just write. Just write. Like, if you have watched Mel Robbins, I think that's her name, Mel Robbins, when you want to do something, the 5 second rule, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and do something about it. Otherwise, you would not do it. Because, like we are human, we worry about what people think about us. And people say, oh, if I write this story, who's going to read it? And if they do read it, what are they going to think about me? Would they think good about me, or would they think I'm weird? Da, da, da. We burden ourselves with all these thoughts to a point that we are not writing. And for me, the challenge in writing, um, I think distraction is more challenging than the story itself. And writer's block is real. I have had that. Um, but then it's more like crafting it. So that's why when we are writing, we are advised to just write. You just flush down everything that you have, flush it out. Don't worry about grammar, don't worry about the right word, or Don't worry about is the plot nice. Don't worry about is this story even realistic. Don't worry about anything. Just flush out everything that you have in your mind. When that's done, and then worry. Before that, don't worry, because when we worry, we just like stop, and it makes it more difficult to continue. How did I gather so many teachers? MashaAllah. They help a lot. For example, when the first one that I attended is when I was 15, right? Cikgu Shahnun was there. Cikgu Shahnun Ahmad was there, and I asked him, why is it all the heroes in Malay stories are men? Like the main character, the protagonist is always a man. And he told me right away that that's why you need to write, because then women can write woman as the protagonist, the center of the story. I said okay. So I meet them from courses, and this is how being affiliated with, I am affiliated with Persatuan Karyawan Pulau Pinang, and Persatuan Karyawan Pulau Pinang has a good relationship with Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka Utara. So whenever Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka have program, they would let us know. And because I was at that point single, so the one, I think the easiest one, like, okay, you go here, you go there, you go here, you go there. So I said, okay, I'll go. So I attended most of them before I was married. So, and because Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka, they have access to all the literature laureate in Malaysia, all the sastrawan negara, right? And they have access to all these literature gurus. So they would bring all these big names, big people into the program. So if you go on Facebook, you can join Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka Facebook. They have their Facebook. And just last week, I think they have for poem and syair. So syair is one, sajak is a modern poem, and then syair is the traditional Malay poem. And they bring big names as well. And it was a blast. Like, I was mind blown because of the things that they share. So this is where you sort of gather so many teachers, and they help because I'm a science student. So they help me see things in the correct lens, with the correct lens. So I can see, oh, okay, I see how I am different compared to a person who study literature. And then I can also see how this different can be a strength, or if I misuse it, it can be a weakness. So that's how they help. And Arenawati is the one that opened up my eyes when he said, why are people worried they don't have a story? For as long as this life is going on, and the wheel of life is never 100%. Meaning, if you imagine a wheel with 8 spokes, let's say education, religion, social welfare, whatever you want, and none of them can be at 100%. Okay, maybe we are good economically, but what about us socially? So he said, until all this part of the aspect of our life is fulfilled 100%, then no story. But it's not, is it? Until we are in heaven, then there's always a story to tell. So I hope I answer your question, James.
And Kanisa, the follow-up from James is that your teachers, like what I heard from you, that maybe they inspire you in writing the story of from a lady's perspective. What else that did they help you in along the way for having a teacher and yourself going there alone?
Having a teacher, I think, is not who has interest in writing, talent in writing. Cik Safura. Okay, I'll get Billy's question first, and then I'll answer yours. Maybe together. When you look at a teacher, it's not only about they inspire you in terms of, oh, you should write this story, write that story. But you look at them as a person, as a mentor. For example, Ustaz Azizi, Haji Abdullah, when he wanted to write about something, he would go out of his way to do his research. He would, invest, he would rent a room in a 5-star hotel just to feel. How does it feel to eat at a five-star hotel, to sleep at a five-star suite? So that when he write, you know that okay, this is real. He knows what he's talking about, and then you also learn from their discipline. You also learn from their motivation as well. You look at them as a person, not just, Ustaz Aziz used to tell us, uh, he's an old man. He said, I'm an old man and I can still write for so many hours a day. You are younger than me, so what's stopping you? What's stopping you? What is it that is holding you back? So that sort of give us a wake up call. That's true. Like he has a job as well. He has a daily job as well, and so that's what I mean when you have a teacher. It's not only about teaching you the syllabus, it's also what's beyond the syllabus that you can see from them, how they deal with things, how they deal with their stories. And people with talent and people with interest. When you have talent, I think talent, if you don't polish, is going to go dull, right? And interest, if you polish it enough, if you fuel it, you can create talent out of it. Because this is the thing with us human beings. This is the great things about us, because we can learn. We can learn. If you have talent but you don't polish it, you don't grow it, you don't groom it, over time it will just fade it away. Just like language, if you speak, for example, you speak English, to a point that you forget what things are called in Bahasa Melayu or in Chinese. But if you, for a person who doesn't speak Bahasa Melayu, but you start speaking Bahasa Melayu, over time they can speak Bahasa Melayu and probably better than a native speaker.
There's a question from the Safura. So she asked that, can you share your thought about people who has interest in writing and the one who has talent in writing?
Yeah, I've answered that one.
Okay.
So talent helps because when you have talent, it becomes a bit easier, because then okay, you sort of the words sort of flow and it's easier. But talent, if you don't polish it, you don't, excuse me, you don't groom it, you don't fill it with knowledge, with practice, it will go dull. But interest, someone who has interest, just last week, an engineer actually was teaching us how to sing the syair, how to sing the Malay poem. And he knows so much, and he's an engineer. And I thought, wow. And he said, oh, this is just because my interest. I have a passion for this. So when someone have interest, they would go far. And I think in many cases, they go further than those who have talent.
Yep. So the follow-up question for Izu, I think that this is the perfect question for you, since that you are pursuing a PhD in science, right? This is, I'm not sure that's your full-time or this writing is your full-time. Okay, what is the tips on how we can write better newsletter stories? And
Yeah.
all the readers are engineers, so what is your approach for us to write the newsletter?
Yeah, Yize, thank you for the question. The thing is, what we like to read and what we like to hear is a story. So storytelling is applicable in any writing, even in the scientific writing. And there's a pyramid. It's called a Freytag pyramid. Freytag pyramid is when you build on something, and then you come to a climax, and then you have the solution and conclusion. So likewise, when you are telling, especially in well, not dry, it's not dry topic, because when an engineer read, it is interesting to an engineer. But then how do you present your results is important. How do you tell the story is important. So what is the message that you want to get across? And these you can do by employing style of writing. So style of writing, what is it? For example, if you want to make a punch, this is an example about environment. About environment, you want to send a message that the environment is dying, it's bad. So you say, we used to have this blah 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 blah. It was great. It was la la la. It was great. It was clean. You highlight all that we had, and then you end it with, and now we don't. So that ending, now we don't, It's a punchline. So it takes your reader by surprise and they realize that all the things that you've described for them is no longer here. So they should do something about it. So when you write newsletter, with data and everything, yes, uh, you can craft it in a way by using styling. Use styling to get your message across, and then arrange your results in a way that it goes gold, silver, and bronze. So the most important thing that you want to get across come first, and have that structure of a Freytag pyramid. There's a picture of it. It goes up, and then you need to come to a climax where your reader needs to make a decision, and then the conclusion. There's a video that that employ Freytag, a video on environmental pollution that's being done, and this fellow, yes, thank you, Wang Qing. And this fellow used Freytag pyramid, and he gets the message wide and across. So you can employ that, and we'll discuss this in the workshop as well, in storytelling.
Just an add-on for your thought. Like the Freytag pyramid, it is a good framework that we can use. And how can we deploy it into, I would say in the writing, or probably a short message like what Izzy mentioned, a short newsletter, or a short message, say like a 1-minute message. How can we do this in a very fast manner if you have the tips?
Okay, so you can, if you are going to use a Freytag pyramid as an example, okay, let's see if I can do this. I'll do my best. How many of us are tired of being in front of the screen nowadays? So did I get your attention there? Right? Everyone is looking at the screen day in and day out, right? Okay, so how many of us are tired of looking at the screen every day? So did you know that although being in the same room, we are apart from each other? So now take a minute, look at your spouse, look at your child, hug them and tell them that you love them, because being together does not mean togetherness. So that's an example, a rough one at that, a raw one at that. So you see that I started with a question, because question usually intrigue people, and this is especially good when you not always, but if you can change, but this is especially good when you are writing semi-creatively. So when you are writing like for engineers, asking question intrigue you then, because it is in our nature to answer that question, and they will read to see if they figure it out, if they get it right. So asking question, and then presenting your observation, and then give a conclusion.
Yep. All right. From Sudhiran, do you pitch your idea to an agent who represent you, or directly to a publisher? Have you thought of exploring self-publishing? Why and why not?
I haven't pitched my ideas to agent because I don't have an agent. There's a method, and I cover this in my workshop as well. What do you do when you already have a manuscript? And different publishing company have different methods. Some of them, they would just ask you, give us a synopsis, and we will see if we like, and then you send us the manuscript. Some said, okay, send us 3 chapters. First 3 chapters. Don't send us all of it, just 3 chapters. So it depends on the publishing company. So the one that I approached, what I did was I sent them the manuscript in PDF form, always PDF, never Word until the agreement is done. Never send Word document. Please bear this in mind. So I send them PDF and a synopsis of what the story is about, and my resume. So that's what I sent to the publisher. So I approached them directly, and you can call them up and ask them what they want as well. You can contact them by email or by phone. I did think about self-publishing, but at the moment, I don't have the means for that. It's not about so much about the money, but it's more about the timing, because because there are many aspect of it that you need to do. Uh, it's not difficult, but at the moment, my constraint is time. So I do have this in mind that I want to become a publisher one day, inshallah. Thank you, Sudiran, for the question.
Khadija, a side question about this is that what I thought is that will you share about I'm not sure for lack of word the value chain of writing industry, and probably in Malaysia besides become a writer, is there any role that we can earn money from the value chain?
Oh yes, there are many jobs in the writing world that pay really well. For example, people become ghostwriter. So ghostwriter, and there's also ghost publisher, meaning to say if I want to self-publish, but I don't have, I don't have the machine, I don't know the steps, I can just go to a publisher and say, I want to publish on my own, but can I use your facility? So we have ghost publisher as well. And ghostwriter get a lot of money, but they don't get their name. So that's the difference between a writer and an author. So an author is a published writer. So people know that you write. So a ghostwriter, they write, but their name is never appeared on the documents or the novel or the books. So they are behind the scene and they get paid really well. And then editor can get well-paid salary, proofreader, and what I think would be really good is to have a research team. Because when I read William Patterson, When the Wind Blows, and in the beginning, he said he have a team of researchers who've done all the research that give him all the information that he needed for that story. He did not necessarily use all of that information, but he had them. And and Ustad Azizi, whenever they are writing novels, they have to make their own research. So they have folders upon folders of reading materials and research findings, but they have to do it on their own. They don't have their team, you see. So that would take time. So perhaps we could write more stories if you have someone working for your research. You work on one story and have somebody else, okay, research on this, so that when I'm ready, I can just go and write my story instead of I need to spend another week or so doing research. Yeah, you can make money in book world if you do it right.
Can you share a bit on the research from my lack of mind? I think writing is just from the mind, right? So I mean, for the fiction writing, is only from what you created in your mind. Why the research is required, and what is the gist of the research?
Okay. So why do you like a story? When you read a story, why do you like a story? Or when you watch a movie, why do you like it? Or why do you despise it? Like, wah, apalah, macam why? It's the believability, to make it believable. So if I were to write about Chinese food, let's say, right? If I were to write about Chinese food, so I might as well know one or two things about Chinese food. For example, where do they put? I used to have a Chinese dietitian. She actually called us and said, "This is the problem with Malays. You put oyster sauce on everything. We Chinese put oyster sauce on green vegetables." And I said, "Oh, really? I didn't know that. We just like oyster sauce, so we put it on everything." So I don't know how she said this. So she's a Chinese dietitian, so I take her word for it. So at least I can say that in my writing. Oh, oyster sauce is from Chinese point of view, is only for green vegetables, not everything. But for us Malay, we put oyster sauce at every opportunity that we can. And maybe, for example, when you write about, you need to do research so it is believable. And how many doctors complain about doctors' movie, saying, "Oh, we don't do that. If you do that, your patient is they complain because they look at it and say, what were you thinking?" So the research is important for believability and also to be a responsible authors. Because as authors, our job is not just about creating story. It is also to educate people. Look at Agatha Christie. She would go to pharmacy and look at all this medicine and look at their um, what are their side effects and whatnot. And one of her readers actually was able to save his neighbor because he read Agatha Christie's book. So how, how proud would you be that your book actually saved someone's life? And likewise, how dreadful it would be if your book actually kills someone. So those are the things. That's why research is important. But you don't have to be so. I will discuss this in the workshop, like 5 P's, proper preparation. It's just proper, not perfect. You don't have to be perfect, but proper, meaning enough. You need to have enough research.
Very good. Yep.
And with Sudiran question, if you now they are taking many ideas pitch from newcomers, especially to be adapted to telemovies, to teledrama. So if you have ideas, you can pitch to the company. Yeah, it's actually quite a Shark Tank in there.
Curious that how many people are writing or written a book or better published book already in our members here.
Yes. How many of us
Anyone?
yeah. Someone talking?
No, it was me.
And if you have a blog, that's a good start. Like, and if you keep journal, you can journal your story in a blog. You can do that. Just get into the discipline of writing it. For example, once a week, you have a blog where you write, or you have a Facebook where you write. Once a week, at least you get into the habit of writing, and the more you do it, then the easier it becomes, I think. It doesn't mean that it's not challenging, but it's easier.
Karina, since just now you mentioned about there's a few things that you might share in the workshop in the end of September, the one that we are doing. So
Yeah.
share what people are expected to learn from the workshop. Probably some ideas, and if that
Okay. So in the workshop, I will share with you. First thing that I want to do in that workshop is I hope that I can change your mindset about writing. That it is not as daunting as we all think it is, but it is a work that takes a lot of responsibility on your shoulder. You need to be responsible on what you write. I will share with you where you can get idea from, how you can tap ideas from, and you look just by looking at Billy's background. There's a million of ideas already right there. And then I will share with you, now that you have the ideas, how are you going to craft a story? And we're going to use the fishbone model, how to create a story. And then because I give an analogy of writing as fishing, so writing as fishing, so how do you make a good hook? How do you start off your story with a good hook? Where do you start a story? So creating, having plot is one thing, and then how do you organize your plot to make the story more believable, more powerful? So those are the things that I'm going to share with you in the workshop.
So is that someone like for me, I totally have no idea what I'm going to write. Do I able to write something? I'll say this is probably less like have a proper things come out from that class.
Well, at least I hope by the end of the 2 days workshop, you can at least find your voice. Find your voice, because I have participants who came to my workshop, she thought she liked to write thriller. I want to write thriller. I want to write thriller. I said, okay, fine, write thriller. What is the hiccup? And then she said, she was asking this and that question, and then she wrote something, and I read her reading and then her writing. Sorry, I read her writing, and I said to her, this is your strength. This is your strength, because you are writing you are writing this and it is flowing, whereas when you are writing thriller, nothing is coming out, and you are forcing yourself. And then she said, really? I said, yes. And I highlighted her strength, and now she has one book being what is that word? Penilaian, assessed. She has a book being assessed by Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka. And I said to her, this is really good. I really like your story. I think it has your strength is here. Continue on with this and then see if you want to explore another genre. So she did, and I said, I suggest to her, send this to Dewan Bahasa. I said it's going to take a while, but I think if you get published by Dewan Bahasa, it's going to be really prestigious. And I really, really hope that her book would be used as a school text in the future. She did not see that coming. And that's why sometimes this is when, like you mentioned, what do teachers do? This is something that teachers do. They can spot your strength that you may not be aware of. So this is where teachers come in and point it out to you. So maybe you want, for example, you are interested in writing travelogue, right? Writing travelogue is one thing, but then maybe, we don't know this, but maybe when you are going through the workshop, then you realize, oh, actually I prefer like this kind of story. Nur Nadia, I think Nur is asking something. Nur Nadira. There's a question in the chat. Billy?
She asked, to become an author, is it necessary to have specific genre that we are known for? Yeah, I think
not necessarily, but I think it in general, we would have one that is dominant. For example, take Charlotte Bronte. She started to write as Currer Bell, right? And she wrote mostly romance, and even her poems are romance or melancholic. She did try to write, some investigative, and then she was not very good at it. She said, okay, why bother writing something I'm bad at? I might as well write something I'm good at. So she sticks with romance. But Cikgu Muhammad Yatim, he wrote many anecdotes, but he also wrote other genre. So you can write other genre, and to do that, you can, for example, if you are writing romance, you go with this publisher. If you are writing different genre, go with different publisher. That's one way to do it, because sometimes publisher, they have their own niche, right? So for example, okay, this publishing company publish romance book, and then this publishing company publish more of a thriller books. So you can choose from there. You don't have to be to limit yourself to one genre. You don't have to do that.
question for Hong Yi. He asked that, how do you divide your time between reading and writing? What a good question.
Yes, Hong Yi. So as an author, you cannot help but you must read. And A. Samad Said, when he was asked, what should an author do? He said, first read, second read, third read, 4 read, 5 write. So the Faizal Terani, who was asking him, said, what if even the 5 is read? Then you only be a reader, not a writer. So we read. I used to do this. I have a cycle. I would read, I would write, and then I would have something of a craft, like, I paint or I draw something just to decompress my brain. And some people watch movies, it's fine. Reading, don't limit reading. Yes, books are important, but don't limit reading to only physical books. You must expand it. I usually expand reading as nourishing your brain, nourishing your mind. So watching documentaries, something that is non-fiction, or watching, go to a museum, uh, that can help you read as well, but in a more relaxed way, I suppose. But you have to have a discipline of reading. So before I was married, I can finish 3 books in a week, but now it's down to 1 book a month. And now I just go like, okay, I'm not gonna worry about how long it's gonna take. I'm just gonna read. So I have different books in different bags. So whichever bag I grab, I continue reading the book that's in the bag. So, but you must read. Continue to read.
By the question that have been asked by the people here, I felt that people really have some interest in writing. Okay.
Wang Qing make a
Yeah,
comment.
exactly. I think also encourage you all to join the 10 book club sharing every month. I was thinking that everyone's way of learning might be different, and probably listening to a bit of insight of what the book's about, and probably some motivation like from Siti here. We can change ourselves a little bit more by slowly. Yeah. Is it possible that we will be affected by the style, thought of the book we read, then we write a story similar? I mean like plagiarism. I'm not sure the right word to say, and how to avoid it.
Yes, we may be affected, because that's why I said, before I write, I really read and then write and then do something else. We will be influenced by the books that we read. But that's why, in the workshop we will discuss about ideas, finding ideas, getting ideas. Um, it is okay not to plagiarize. Plagiarize is never okay. It is okay that you are influenced by someone's book, and it is normal actually, as a beginner, that people would say, oh, so and so writing is like that big name, or she writes like Ahmad Said, or she write like imitating so and so. This is normal until you find your own voice, your own rhythm, and then uh, write a story similar. Writing similar stories would still have differences, and I would explain this in the workshop as well, and how to avoid it. And this is why whenever you read something, you would go, and that's why you write your work after you've written all of them, and then you go back, and during editing, you try to find if this is, picking up from another story or what. So that's another part, that's editing part. You avoid it. The simplest way to avoid it is to sort of put it away for a while and then come back to it.
All right. If there's no more question, Kaneza, thank you for coming again. I think
Thank you for having
I
me.
enjoyed the session, and looking forward to the workshop. Was eager to learn a bit more, to see how I can get some tips. I believe that this is like a building blocks, not just for writing, but also like you mentioned, we also can do it verbally. We also can do it in newsletter, as what Izzy had mentioned. I think that will be a good trick. And that's the end of insightful sharing from Siti. I believe she might trigger your sense to try to put the pen onto the paper, or your hand to your keyboard. Write some stories and ideas. One day, you will be seeing people reading your book. Hope that you enjoyed the session and learned something today. Do tune in and subscribe. If you like this video, you will love the custom playlist I have made that has my most popular videos about how to study that have apparently changed people's life. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Happy learning!